Maya's fingers trembled as she applied concealer to the thin white line that ran from her left temple to her jawbone, the morning ritual as automatic as breathing. The scar had faded over the years, but never disappeared, a permanent reminder etched into her skin like a cruel signature. She'd perfected the art of angling her face just right, letting her auburn hair fall strategically, wearing her brightest smile like armor. Because if you smiled wide enough, people only saw the happiness, they never looked deeper. The coffee shop buzzed with the usual Tuesday morning chaos, laptops clicking, steam hissing, conversations blending into white noise. Maya had worked at Cornerstone Cafe Tilde Copyright for 3 years, serving lattes and pastries with the kind of infectious cheerfulness that turned her regular customers and decent tips. She was the girl who remembered everyone's order, who asked about sick relatives and celebrated small victories. She was sunshine in an apron, and everyone loved her for it. The usual, "Mrs. Peterson?" Maya called out, already reaching for the decaf Colombian blend before the elderly woman even nodded. Her smile never wavered, even when Mrs. Peterson squinted at her face with the intensity of someone trying to solve a puzzle. "You know, dear, you have such a lovely smile." Lights up the whole room. Mrs. Peterson's voice carried the warmth of someone who'd lived long enough to recognize genuine kindness. Maya's practiced response rolled off her tongue. "You're too sweet. That'll be $3.75. The morning rush continued in its predictable rhythm until he walked in. He wasn't particularly tall or remarkably handsome, just an ordinary man in his 30s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and hair that looked like he'd forgotten to comb it. What made him different wasn't his appearance, but the way he looked at her. Not through her, not past her, but at her. Really at her. "What can I get you started with?" Maya asked, deploying her signature smile. "Medium coffee, black, please." His voice was quiet, thoughtful. As she turned to pour his drink, she felt his eyes on her, and not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but in a way that made her suddenly self-conscious about the slight tilt of her head, the careful positioning that had become second nature. When she handed him the cup, their fingers brushed briefly. "That's a beautiful smile you have," he said softly. Then, after a pause that seemed to stretch between them like a bridge, he added, "But your eyes look tired. Are you okay?" The words hit her like a physical blow. In 3 years of serving hundreds of customers, no one had ever asked. No one had looked past the brilliant smile to see the exhaustion she carried, the weight she bore alone. Her carefully constructed mask slipped for just a moment, a microsecond of vulnerability that he caught and held gently. "I'm fine," she stammered, the lie bitter on her tongue. "Just a long morning." He nodded, but his eyes didn't leave her face. "I'm David," he said simply, "and if you ever need someone to listen, I'm usually here around this time." For the next 2 weeks, David came in every Tuesday and Thursday at exactly 9:30 a.m. He never pushed, never pried, but his presence became a strange comfort. He'd order his black coffee, leave a generous tip, and sometimes share a story about his work as a social worker or ask gentle questions about her day. Maya found herself looking forward to those moments of brief conversations that felt like oases in her carefully choreographed routine. The third Thursday, Maya arrived at work with fresh bruises hidden beneath layers of makeup and a smile that felt heavier than usual. Her stepfather had been drinking again, and her mother's medical bills kept climbing. At 19, Maya was drowning in responsibilities that weren't meant to be hers, but someone had to keep the family afloat. David noticed immediately, while other customers rushed through their orders, distracted by phones and schedules. He studied her face with the careful attention of someone who understood pain. "Rough night?" he asked quietly, accepting his coffee. This time, Maya's smile faltered completely. The weight of pretending suddenly felt unbearable. "David," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "How did you know to ask? Everyone else just sees what I want them to see." David leaned against the counter, ignoring the growing line behind him. "Because I've been where you are." "Not exactly, but close enough. When you're drowning, you learn to recognize the signs in others." The tears came then, hot and unstoppable. Maya turned away, but David was already moving around the counter. Her manager, seeing the situation, nodded understandingly. David's kindness hadn't gone unnoticed by anyone who worked there. "Hey," David said gently, placing a careful hand on her shoulder. "What happened to your face?" The real story. For the first time in 2 years, Maya told the truth. She told him about the car accident that killed her father when she was 17, the scar that served as a constant reminder of the worst night of her life. She told him about her stepfather's drinking, her mother's depression and diabetes, the college dreams she'd sacrificed to keep food on the table. She told him about the smile she wore like a shield because if she let it slip, even for a moment, everything would fall apart. David listened without judgment, without trying to fix everything, without making her feel small or pitied. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Maya," he said finally, "that scar isn't ugly. It's proof that you survived something that should have broken you. And the strength you have yet taking care of everyone else, it's extraordinary. But you don't have to carry everything alone." Over the following months, David became more than a customer. He connected Maya with resources for her mother's medical care, helped her apply for financial aid to return to school part-time, and slowly taught her that accepting help wasn't weakness, it was courage. The day Maya received her acceptance letter to nursing school, she found David waiting at his usual table with 2 cups of coffee instead of 1. "I thought we could celebrate," he said, his own smile radiant. As they sat together, Maya caught her reflection in the Café Tilde copyright window. Her scar was visible in the afternoon light, no longer hidden behind layers of concealer. But for the first time in years, she wasn't trying to hide it. She was smiling, and not the practiced, protective smile she'd perfected, but something real and unguarded. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for seeing me." David reached across the table and squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for letting yourself be seen." Sometimes the most profound acts of kindness aren't grand gestures or heroic deeds. Sometimes they're as simple as asking, "Are you okay?" and meaning it. Sometimes they're about looking past the smile someone wears to protect themselves and seeing the person underneath the scars and all. Maya learned that her scars didn't define her, but neither did the smile she used to cover them. What defined her was her capacity to love, to sacrifice, to endure, and finally, to heal. In a world that often rushes past suffering, David had stopped long enough to ask why. And in that simple question, Maya found the beginning of her own redemption.